Morning. So I made a video showing how to level the deck on your BadBoy Revolt, and the process is generally about the same from the 36 on up, but there are a few small differences on the 48s and bigger. The difference being mainly is the shock absorber or damper, whatever it is, on the bigger models. The 36 does not have one of those. On the 36, right here, there is no, I don't know if it's a shock absorber or a damper or whatever it is. It just helps raise and lower the deck. So on the 48s, it does have one, and I believe the bigger models probably do as well. This is what I'm talking about. Well, let's see if I can get a better angle on it. It's this bar right here that is a damper or something. So the process is about the same, but I had a comment on there saying that they had just a little bit of trouble with it, so let me go through real quick what you do a little bit differently for the bigger models so that you know. So here's what you're going to need for this job. I have two 2x4s that are long enough to go from the front all the way to the back of the deck. I don't know an exact length for you, but turning a 2x4 up on edge is right about 3.5 inches. And then for the back, I have two edger blades that I use because you want to have the proper pitch on your deck. Now what the pitch on your deck is, it just means that the front of your mower deck needs to be 1/4 inch lower than the back of the deck. So if you're, like what I'm doing here, is I'm setting it on top of those 2x4s, and I'm going to set my height adjustment lever at 3.5 inches. So the front of the deck will be 3.5 inches, and the rear of the deck will be 3 3/4 inches. It gives it just a little bit of a lean, and that helps everything move along the way it's supposed to be and sucking the grass upwards. That's just how it is, and the BadBoy manual recommends a 1/4 inch difference between the front and the back of the deck. And I have found that using two edger blades, whether they're new or not, two edger blades stacked up is right at 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these and I'm going to push them underneath the deck. Raise it all the way up just to be able to get everything underneath there. I'm going to push these all the way through until they poke out the back. And then those edger blades are right underneath the back edge of the deck. Got one there. Then once I push them through, I'll give you a different angle so you can see what I'm talking about. But when you're pushing these through, you want to put them in a spot to where the blade bolts, the bolts that hold the blade on, are not leaning on top of the 2x4. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So I've got them poking out the front, and then in the back, they're poking out just underneath the back edge of the deck. And those edger blades are there to have the rear of the deck 1/4 inch higher. And they're far enough over to where this bolt that holds the blades on is not going to drop on top of the 2x4. It'll just be right next to it. I've got my height pin set at 3.5 inches because that's the measure of the 2x4s. So then what we're going to do, we're going to pop this down all the way to the pin. Now, one thing that you'll notice is you get a little bit of wiggle in your lever here, and that's because there's resistance from this damper. And as soon as you undo your deck bolts, one there, one there, one right here, and one right there. As soon as you undo those, this deck lever is going to pop up, and it's going to be way back here, and then the deck will be free floating. Now the way that I get around that issue to keep the deck lever in place is I use, this is a 15-inch, whatever the heck it's called, bungee cord. Just stick it through the height adjustment holes, stick it on there, push that down, and then I loop this up and over and stick it through the other one. And what that's going to do is it's going to hold this lever up against this pin, so when you loosen those, this doesn't go all funky on you. It holds this right where it needs to be. So then from there, all you're going to do is you're going to loosen your deck linkage bolts, and it's going to drop the deck down, resting only on the 2x4s. So right now, it's sitting on there, and it's good to go. So you're going to loosen the 2 bolts, or the 2 nuts over here, the 2 nuts over here. Don't take them all the way out. And it's just going to rest there at 3.5 inches. Your deck lever is at 3.5 inches. And then you go back, and the manual recommends doing tightening both of the rear nuts, and then going back and tightening both of the nuts on the front. So let me get that done, and then I'll show you underneath how I measure the blades. And did I mention what size wrench and ratchet you're going to need? I don't know if I did, but this is a 3/8 drive ratchet. I've got like a 6-inch extension on there just to be able to get some clearance away from the nuts, and a 9/16 socket. And then for the back side, you're going to need a 9/16 wrench. Alright, so I got the nuts loosened, went back and retightened them with everything in place. So what we're going to do now, pull off the bungee cord, get it out of your way, raise the deck, lock it in place, and pull your 2x4s out. Get them out of the way so you're not tripping over them and making a bunch of racket. Then drop the height lever back down to 3.5 inches. Now, for a quick measuring guide, you can use a big old impact socket. This is just a big old impact socket that I had in the toolbox. But the handy thing about this that makes it a little easier is it is 3.5 inches tall. So instead of trying to wiggle your tape measure underneath there and bend it and wiggle it to try to get it to the right spot, you know this is 3.5 inches. So this should slide right up underneath, or at least very close to, the front blade, the front tip of the blade. And then it should have about a 1/4 inch clearance on the back side of the blade. So instead of trying to measure, you can just slide this right through and you can get it just checked real quick. Alright, so the deck's dropped down to that 3.5 inches. Now your blade placement, when you're measuring these, you want your blade to be running from front to back. You don't want it side to side or cockeyed, because that's not going to give you the right measurement that you need. So you just grab it, spin it to where it's running front to back. Then you can grab your little quick checker and slide it right to it. Now that is just a hair off, maybe an 1/8 of an inch, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. Close enough for me. So that's the front, and then you can slide it over to the back. If I can wiggle my way around there. Right to the back side of the blade, and there's just a little bit of clearance there. So you want the back of the blade to be a 1/4 inch higher than the front of the blade. Then you can go to the other side and check the other side as well. Now we're on the other side of the mower, which is way harder to film because it doesn't have that gap. So you reach under, you grab this blade, make sure it's running front to back. Grab your height gauge and put it right up underneath there. And this one is right on touching the top of it. And then you slide to the back. And it has about a 1/4 inch of clearance on that. So now that's the whole process. It's about the same as the 36, but on the 36s, you don't have to contend with this putting resistance on your height adjustment lever. Like I said, if you loosen all those up without holding this down with that bungee cord, it's just going to spring up and be in the wrong position. So I hold it down against that 3.5 mark to make sure that it doesn't move. And then if it's still a little bit off and you start pushing down on this lever and notice there's a little bit of play in it, one thing you can check is your linkage bolts. Like I had a little bit of that play going on, and I noticed this nut had backed off just a little bit, and so there was play in this linkage, and then this linkage back here as well. So I tightened up this bolt, tightened up this bolt, then I went to the other side, which has the same linkages, and I tightened this one up, and I tightened that one up. You don't need to kill them. They do have this little bushing kind of thing between them, this little spacer. So there's supposed to be some movement there. So I tightened them up, snugged them up, and now the play is gone. And that's how you level the deck on a BadBoy Revolt that is larger than the 36-inch model. So this is 48 inches and up because they have that damper. 36 does not. Now you're all leveled up. Another thing to make sure that you check before you get started with this is you want to check your floor to make sure it's level. And then you want to make sure that your tire pressures are correct. The manual states to set the tires to 12 psi, because if you have one tire that's lower than another, your mower is going to be a little cockeyed from the get-go. So it recommended 12 psi. I made sure that both of the rear tires had 12 psi in them. I believe the 14s currently have about 14. The front casters have about 14 on them. So just make sure that they match, make sure your floor is level. If you're right next to a floor drain, make sure you check that level, because near a floor drain, the concrete tends to go down to collect the water in that floor drain. So that's how you do that. Shouldn't take you very long. It's a fairly simple process. I'm gonna get back to work. I'll be good.